When Daryl Hannah walks into a room at 64 years old, something doesn't add up. The math breaks. People see her skin, her energy, the way she moves, and their brain tells them they're looking at someone in their early 40s. This isn't good genetics or expensive treatments. This is the result of 3 specific foods she stopped eating decades ago, and one decision that changed everything. I'm Margot, and on this channel we tell real stories about real people who've cracked the code on longevity through plants. No hype, no pseudoscience, just documented results. And Daryl Hannah's story is one of the most compelling I've encountered, because she made these choices long before plant-based eating became mainstream, long before Instagram influencers and longevity podcasts. She made them when it was weird, when it was hard, when nobody was watching. Let me take you back to the 1980s. Daryl Hannah is at the peak of Hollywood stardom. Splash just made her a household name. Blade Runner established her as a serious actress. She's doing press tours, red carpets, late-night shows, and quietly, without fanfare, she's making a decision that will define the next 4 decades of her life. She goes vegan, not for a movie role, not because a guru told her to. She made the choice after connecting deeply with environmental activism and recognizing the impact of food systems on the planet. But what she didn't expect, what nobody could have predicted, was how profoundly it would affect her aging process. Fast forward to today, Daryl Hannah is 64. And when you look at recent photographs, when you watch her in interviews, when you see her moving through the world, you're not seeing someone who looks good for her age. You're seeing someone who genuinely looks 20+ years younger than her chronological age. Her skin has a luminosity that women half her age chase with thousands of dollars in treatments. Her energy is palpable. Her posture, her movement quality, her mental sharpness, all indicators that something fundamentally different is happening at the cellular level. So, what are the 3 foods Daryl Hannah avoids? And more importantly, why do these 3 foods have such a dramatic impact on how we age? Let's start with the first food. And this one is the silent killer that most people consume every single day without realizing the damage it's doing: refined sugar. Now, I know what you're thinking. Everyone says sugar is bad. This isn't new information, but what most people don't understand is the specific mechanism by which refined sugar ages your skin, your organs, your entire body at an accelerated rate. And once you understand this mechanism, once you see what's actually happening inside your cells, you'll never look at sugar the same way again. The process is called glycation. When you consume refined sugar, your blood glucose spikes. These sugar molecules floating in your bloodstream start binding to proteins in a process that creates compounds called advanced glycation end products. The acronym is AGEs, which is almost poetic because that's exactly what they do. They age you. Here's where it gets specific. Collagen and elastin, the proteins that keep your skin firm and elastic, are prime targets for glycation. When sugar molecules bind to these proteins, they become stiff, brittle, and discolored. This is why people who consume high amounts of refined sugar develop sagging skin, deep wrinkles, and that dull, greyish tone that no amount of topical products can reverse. Research published in the British Journal of Dermatology in 2010 examined this exact process. They looked at skin samples from individuals with different dietary patterns and measured AGE accumulation. The results were stark. People consuming high levels of refined sugars and high glycemic foods had significantly more age deposits in their dermal tissue. Their collagen fibers showed visible cross-linking and degradation. Under a microscope, the difference between high sugar and low sugar skin looked like two different species. But here's what makes Daryl Hannah's approach so powerful. She didn't just cut back on sugar. She eliminated refined sugar entirely. That means no white sugar, no high fructose corn syrup, no agave nectar marketed as healthy, no coconut sugar with a health halo. She gets her sweetness from whole fruits, where the fiber content slows glucose absorption and prevents those damaging spikes. And the results? At 64, her skin has the kind of elasticity and tone that most people lose by their mid-40s. There's no sagging around the jawline, no deep nasolabial folds, no creepy texture on the neck and décolletage. This isn't surgery. This isn't filler. This is what happens when you stop glycating your proteins for 40 years. But sugar is just the beginning. The second food Daryl Hannah avoids is something that most people think of as harmless, even healthy in moderation: processed salt. Now, before you think this is about blood pressure and heart health, yes, those are factors. But what I want you to understand is the specific effect that excess sodium has on facial aging. Because when you see someone with puffy eyes, with visible fluid retention in their face, with that bloated look that adds years to their appearance, you're often seeing the cumulative effect of processed salt consumption. Here's what happens. When you consume high levels of sodium, particularly from processed foods, your body retains water to maintain proper electrolyte balance. This fluid doesn't distribute evenly. It accumulates in areas where tissue is naturally looser, like under the eyes, around the jawline, in the cheeks. Over time, this chronic fluid retention stretches the skin. The elastic fibers become fatigued, and you end up with permanent puffiness and sagging that people attribute to getting older when it's actually dietary. But there's a deeper mechanism at play. Excessive sodium intake disrupts the sodium-potassium balance in your cells. This balance is critical for cellular hydration, for nutrient transport, for waste removal. When it's out of whack, your cells literally age faster. They can't maintain their internal environment. They accumulate metabolic waste. They lose their ability to repair damage efficiently. Daryl Hannah avoids processed salt entirely. She lives on an off-grid ranch in the Rocky Mountains where she grows her own food. When she uses salt, it's minimal amounts of mineral-rich sea salt. Most of her sodium comes from naturally occurring sources in vegetables, particularly leafy greens and celery. And the result? Her face has zero puffiness, zero fluid retention. The definition in her bone structure is still visible. Her eyes are clear and bright. This is what facial aging looks like when you're not chronically inflaming and bloating your tissue with excess sodium. There's a study from the Journal of the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, published in 2021, that measured biological age markers in people following different dietary patterns. They used epigenetic clocks, sophisticated tools that measure how old your cells actually are compared to your chronological age. And what they found was remarkable. People following whole food plant-based diets, naturally low in processed sodium and high in potassium-rich foods, had biological ages that averaged 3 to 5 years younger than their actual age. 3 to 5 years younger at the cellular level. That's not a cream. That's not a supplement. That's fundamental cellular function being optimized through nutrition. But the third food Daryl Hannah avoids is the one that surprises people most, because this food is everywhere. It's in restaurants, in convenience stores, in the homes of almost every American. and the food industry has spent billions of dollars convincing us it's not just acceptable, but essential. Processed oils, vegetable oils, canola oil, soybean oil, corn oil, the refined oils that are extracted using high heat, chemical solvents, and industrial processing. These oils are in salad dressings, in baked goods, in frozen meals, in restaurant cooking. They're virtually impossible to avoid unless you make a conscious decision to eliminate them. Here's why they matter for aging. These processed oils are extremely high in omega-6 fatty acids and undergo oxidation during processing and storage. When you consume oxidized fats, you're introducing free radicals directly into your system. These free radicals damage cell membranes, damage DNA, damage mitochondria. They create a cascade of inflammatory processes that accelerate aging in every organ system. Your skin is particularly vulnerable. The lipid barrier that keeps your skin hydrated and protected is made of fatty acids. When you consume damaged, oxidized oils, those damaged fats get incorporated into your skin's structure. The result is compromised barrier function, increased water loss, increased sensitivity, and accelerated visible aging. Research published in Nutrients in 2019 specifically examined the relationship between dietary fat quality and skin aging. They compared people consuming high amounts of processed vegetable oils versus those getting their fats from whole food sources like nuts, seeds, avocados, and olives. The difference in skin quality was measurable. The whole food fat group had better skin elasticity, less wrinkling, and higher moisture content in their dermal tissue. Daryl Hannah gets her fats from whole food sources, avocados from her garden, nuts and seeds. Coconut used minimally and mindfully. She doesn't cook with extracted oils. She doesn't consume products made with them. And at 64, her skin has a glow, a radiance, that you simply don't see in people consuming standard American diets heavy in processed oils. But here's what makes her story even more compelling. It's not just what she avoids, it's what she eats instead. Because elimination is only half the equation. The real transformation happens when you replace inflammatory, aging foods with foods that actively support cellular repair and regeneration. Daryl Hannah's diet is built on whole plant foods in their natural state. Vegetables from her garden, eaten at peak freshness when their nutrient content is highest. Fruits that provide antioxidants, polyphenols, and phytonutrients that protect against oxidative stress. Legumes that provide protein and resistant starches that feed beneficial gut bacteria. Whole grains that deliver sustained energy without glucose spikes. This isn't a restrictive diet. This isn't deprivation. This is abundance. This is eating in alignment with human biology. And the results speak for themselves. Let's talk about what's actually happening at the cellular level when you eat this way for decades. Because this is where the science gets really exciting. First, you're dramatically reducing inflammation. Chronic low-grade inflammation is now recognized as the primary driver of aging and age-related disease. It's been termed inflammaging by researchers. And the standard American diet, high in processed sugars, processed salts, and processed oils, is profoundly inflammatory. When you eliminate those foods and replace them with whole plant foods, you're removing the inflammatory triggers. Your baseline inflammation drops, and when inflammation drops, aging slows. Second, you're optimizing your gut microbiome. The trillions of bacteria in your digestive system play a critical role in everything from immune function to neurotransmitter production to skin health. When you eat a diverse array of plant foods, you're feeding beneficial bacteria. These bacteria produce compounds called short-chain fatty acids that reduce inflammation, strengthen the gut barrier, and even influence gene expression related to aging. Daryl Hannah's diet, rich in fiber from vegetables and legumes, creates a microbiome environment that supports longevity. Third, you're activating cellular repair mechanisms. When you eat whole plant foods instead of processed junk, your cells aren't constantly dealing with oxidative stress and inflammatory damage. They can shift resources toward repair and maintenance. Autophagy, the process by which cells clean out damaged components and recycle them, functions more efficiently. DNA repair mechanisms work better. Mitochondrial function improves. You're literally giving your cells the tools they need to keep you young. And fourth, this is the mechanism that shows up most visibly in the skin. You're providing the specific nutrients that support collagen production and skin structure. Vitamin C from fresh fruits and vegetables is essential for collagen synthesis. Copper from nuts and seeds supports elastin formation. Silica from whole grains strengthens connective tissue. Polyphenols from berries and leafy greens protect against UV damage and oxidative stress. When you look at Daryl Hannah's skin at 64, you're seeing the cumulative effect of 4 decades of optimal nutrition. You're seeing what human skin is capable of when it's properly supported. But here's what I find most powerful about her story. She didn't do this for vanity. She didn't do this to look younger. She made these choices because they aligned with her values around environmentalism and animal welfare. The anti-aging benefits were a side effect, a bonus. And that's what makes them so authentic and sustainable. Because when you make dietary changes purely for aesthetics, they're fragile. They depend on willpower and motivation that waxes and wanes. But when your food choices are connected to something deeper, to values that define who you are, they become effortless. They become part of your identity. Daryl Hannah lives on an off-grid ranch. She generates her own solar power. She collects rainwater. She grows her own food. She's been arrested multiple times for climate activism, including chaining herself to equipment during pipeline protests. This is someone who has organized her entire life around environmental principles. And her vegan diet isn't a trend or a phase. It's a direct expression of those principles. And yet, the benefits she's experienced are profound and measurable. At 64, she moves like someone in their 40s. She has the energy to maintain a ranch, to garden, to hike mountain trails, to show up for activism that requires physical stamina. Her cognitive function is sharp. Her skin is radiant. Her overall health markers, based on what she's shared in interviews about her lifestyle, are exceptional. This is what longevity looks like when it's built on a foundation of whole plant foods. This is what's possible when you align your eating with human biology instead of food industry marketing. Now, let me address the question that's probably forming in your mind right now. Is this realistic? Can a normal person actually eat like Daryl Hannah? The answer is, it depends on how you define realistic. Can you live on an off-grid ranch and grow all your own food? For most people, no. That's not practical. But can you eliminate refined sugar, processed salt, and processed oils from your diet? Can you build your meals around whole plant foods? Absolutely. That's completely achievable regardless of where you live or what your schedule looks like. Here's what the practical application looks like. You start by clearing out your pantry. You remove products with added sugars, with long ingredient lists, with oils as primary ingredients. This isn't about perfection. This is about shifting the baseline. You replace those products with whole foods, fruits, vegetables, beans, lentils, whole grains, nuts, seeds. Foods that don't need ingredient labels because they are the ingredient. You learn to cook, not fancy recipes, not complicated techniques, simple preparations that let the natural flavors of plants shine through. Roasted vegetables, grain bowls, bean soups, smoothies packed with leafy greens and berries. This isn't difficult cooking. This is cooking that a child could learn. You adjust your palate. This is the part that takes time. When you've been eating hyper-palatable processed foods your entire life, whole foods taste bland at first. Your taste buds are calibrated to artificial intensity. But within a few weeks of eating this way, something shifts. Your palate recalibrates. Suddenly you can taste the sweetness in a carrot, the complexity in a bowl of lentils, the satisfaction in a perfectly ripe peach. Food becomes more enjoyable, not less, and then you watch what happens to your body. Within days, you'll notice more stable energy, no more crashes after meals. Within weeks, your skin starts to change, more glow, less puffiness. Within months, chronic issues you attributed to just getting older start to resolve. Joint pain decreases, digestion improves, brain fog lifts, and over years, this is where it gets really interesting. You start aging differently than your peers. You show up at a high school reunion and people ask what you've done. You watch friends your age decline while you maintain vitality. You realize you're not just living longer, you're living better. More energy, more clarity, more physical capability. This is compressed morbidity, the goal of longevity science, staying healthy and functional until very late in life, then declining rapidly rather than suffering decades of progressive disease. This is what Daryl Hannah has achieved. And the blueprint is simple. Remove the 3 foods that accelerate aging. Build your diet on whole plants. Live in alignment with your values. Be patient and consistent. But let's zoom out for a moment and look at why this approach works when so many diets fail. Because the diet industry is built on failure. Products and programs that work briefly then stop. Approaches that require constant vigilance and willpower. Systems that make you feel deprived and restricted. The whole food plant-based approach that Daryl Hannah exemplifies is different. It's not a diet. It's a way of eating that works with human physiology instead of against it. When you eat this way, you're not fighting hunger. You're not restricting calories. You're eating until satisfied, often eating more volume of food than you did before, but the quality of that food is fundamentally different. The fiber content keeps you full. The nutrient density satisfies your body's needs. The absence of processed foods means you're not triggering the addictive patterns that make you overeat. And perhaps most importantly, the inflammation drops, the gut heals, and your body's natural hunger and satiety signals start working properly again. This is why Daryl Hannah has maintained this way of eating for over 40 years. It's not hard. It's not a struggle. It's just what she eats. It's as natural to her as breathing. And the results are undeniable. At 64, she's living proof that you can age dramatically slower than the standard trajectory. That the decline we associate with getting older isn't inevitable. That the food you eat every single day is either accelerating your aging or protecting against it. There's no neutral ground. Let me share one more piece of research that ties this all together. A 2019 study published in Nutrients examined the relationship between plant-based diets and skin aging. They recruited participants across a wide age range and dietary patterns. They took detailed photographs of facial skin. They measured wrinkles, elasticity, hydration, pigmentation, and they correlated these measurements with dietary intake. What they found was a clear dose-response relationship. The more plant foods people ate, particularly fruits and vegetables high in antioxidants, the better their skin quality. The more processed foods, refined sugars, and damaged fats they consumed, the worse their skin looked. And this relationship held true regardless of age. Even among older participants, those eating more plants had measurably younger-looking skin. The mechanisms they identified line up perfectly with what we see in Daryl Hannah. Higher antioxidant intake protecting against free radical damage, lower glycation from reduced sugar consumption, better lipid profiles from whole food fat sources, improved barrier function from nutrient density. This isn't magic. This isn't genetics. This is biochemistry. This is what happens when you align your eating with the way human cells function. So here's my challenge to you. Look at your current diet. Identify where refined sugar, processed salt, and processed oils are showing up. Maybe it's your morning coffee sweetener. Maybe it's the dressing on your lunch salad. Maybe it's the snacks you grab in the afternoon. Maybe it's how you cook dinner. Pick one, just one, and replace it with a whole food alternative. Swap the sugar for dates blended into a smoothie. Swap the processed dressing for tahini mixed with lemon juice. Swap the chips for roasted chickpeas. Swap the cooking oil for water sautéing or dry roasting. One change, and notice what happens. Notice how you feel. Notice what your taste buds do. Notice whether that one change creates momentum for another change. Because transformation doesn't happen all at once. It happens through small, consistent choices that compound over time. Daryl Hannah didn't wake up at 30 and perfectly implement a longevity diet. She made a choice, then she made it again, then again. And 40 years later, she's reaping the benefits of those accumulated choices. You have that same opportunity, right now, today. The food you eat for your next meal is either protecting your cells or damaging them. It's either reducing inflammation or increasing it. It's either supporting your skin's structure or breaking it down. Choose wisely. Choose plants. And watch what happens when you give your body the tools it needs to keep you young. If you want more stories like this, real people achieving real results through whole food plant-based eating, subscribe to this channel. We don't do hype. We don't do pseudoscience. We document what works, and we show you how to apply it in your own life. I'm Margot. Thank you for watching, and remember, aging is inevitable, but how you age is negotiable.